In this video, we'll be talking about how to plot straight line graphs as well as covering what coordinate tables actually are. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools to take on any question involving plotting straight lines. The timestamps will refer to when we talk about coordinate tables, as well as covering not just one, but two examples of plotting straight lines. It's Rami here, let's get into it. So before we talk about plotting line equations using a table of coordinates, we need to understand what a table of coordinates actually is and how to use it. A coordinates table, or table of coordinates, is an alternative way of representing coordinates using a table. Here's an example of a table of coordinates. But what does this table actually mean? First, notice we have these X and Y letters written on the far left-hand side. And whatever letters you see on the far left column, they will be assigned values that are dictated by the numbers to the right of it. Let's focus on this highlighted part for just a moment and ignore everything else. Now notice that the 1 is on the same row as the X, whereas the 3 is on the same row as the Y. This information is simply saying that when X equals 1, Y equals 3. These values are essentially paired together. And the way that we will pair these values is in the form of a coordinate. That coordinate will be 1, 3. I'm going to make an additional row in our table, title it as coordinates, and write down what the coordinates actually are for the remaining columns. I'm now going to plot 1, 3 on the XY axis. So in a similar manner, looking at these highlighted parts, the table is also saying that when X equals 2, Y equals 5. Again, these numbers will be paired together, and that coordinate will be 2, 5, which I'm going to plot on the axis. Moving along to the right, the coordinates for those respective columns are 3, 7 and 4, 9. You may notice that the top row values represent the X part of every respective coordinate, whereas the bottom row represents the Y part of the respective coordinates. In general, we don't actually need that new coordinates row that I wrote at the bottom of the table. This was there to just help you understand what coordinates I was about to plot on the axis. In future, I'm not going to write the coordinates row, and instead I'll just plot them right away. Now that we've answered the question, what's a table of coordinates, and we know how to use them, let's answer the second question, which is, how do we plot straight lines? Suppose we want to plot the graph y equals 2x plus 1 with this partially completed table of coordinates. Now notice that we can't plot any point on the axis until the table is complete. There are 5 x values spanning from -2 to 2, whereas the y values are blank. In order to draw a line using the table, we need to fill in the missing parts. Our first step will be to complete the table of coordinates using our equation. Usually, we work from left to right when doing so, and since we know that for the highlighted column, x equals -2, we can substitute this into the equation to find the corresponding paired y value. Upon substituting x equals -2 into the equation, we attain y equals 2 times -2 plus 1, which is the same as saying -4 plus 1, which equals -3. I'm now going to place -3 into the missing highlighted cell. Moving to the next column, upon substituting x equals -1 into the equation, we attain y equals 2 times -1 plus 1, which is -1. And to save some of your time here, continuing to work from left to right, in the same manner, the corresponding y values are 1, 3, and 5 respectively. In the second step, we'll now plot each of these coordinates one at a time on the axis. Again, working from left to right, I'll now place the coordinates -2, -3, -1, -1, 0, 1, 1, 3, and 2, 5 onto the graph. Now there's just one more step. In the third step, we'll draw a line passing through those points. Make sure that your line extends beyond the leftmost and rightmost points. So we want to extend the line beyond -2, -3, and 2, 5. A common mistake here is to just plot the line starting and ending from the furthest leftmost and rightmost points. But don't do that because, as we've seen just moments ago, the line is not limited to just those points. Instead, make sure that the line extends beyond those left and rightmost points. Looking at the question we just completed, if we were to remove values from the table one by one, we still would have been able to draw the line in exactly the same way. We could have gotten away with just 4, 3, or even 2 points, and still have been able to sketch the line passing through those points. You just want to be a bit careful using 2 points because if you plotted just one or both coordinates incorrectly, it would be hard to see whether you made a mistake. So a pro tip here is if you find 3 points, you're more likely to discover whether you made a mistake. Of course, in our example, just stick to only placing the points from the original table. So if there's 5 points, just plot 5 points. So far, we had an example with a partial table of coordinates provided, so we knew which y values to use. But now let's look at an example where no table of coordinates is provided. Suppose we want to plot the graph y plus 3x equals 2 and there is no table. As mentioned earlier, it's best to use 3 coordinates. So our first step will be to construct a table of coordinates. Let's start by making a blank table and write x and y on the left-hand side. So now we need to decide what values of x to pick. So we can then work out the corresponding y values. But how are we supposed to know what values to use? We could use whatever values of x we wanted. However, typically I like to choose small positive whole numbers or 0 as it just makes calculations a bit easier. Let's go for 0, 1 and 2 respectively. Notice that this time we don't have y as the subject. So there are 2 ways to go about this. The first method would be to substitute the x values into the equation, then rearrange, whereas the second method would be to rearrange the equation to make y the subject, then substitute the values of x in. Honestly, either method is perfectly fine, but I'll just select the second method. And using this latter method, our second step is to rearrange to make y the subject. Let's subtract 3x from each side to get y equals 2 minus 3x. Then the third step is to calculate the corresponding y values like we did just before. Like previously, we just work from left to right, then substitute in those x values. So when we substitute x equals 0, we get a y value of 2. When we substitute x equals 1, we get a y value of minus 1. And when we substitute x equals 2, we get a y value of minus 4. And then the fourth step is to plot the corresponding coordinates onto the axis and draw a line passing through all the points. So we've talked about what a table of coordinates is, how to plot a line using a table of coordinates, and how to plot a line when a table of coordinates isn't already provided. So now you're a master of this topic. So that's going to do it. I hope you managed to get something out of today's video. Don't forget to subscribe for more free content just like this and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any uploads from this channel. If you have any questions, just pop them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next video.